All right, let's change tack slightly. Obviously, you've written the book, The Strange Death of Europe, where you talk a lot about culture in Europe.
Yeah.
You talk about how people in Europe find it difficult to, in some circumstances, even admit that they have a culture, that there is a European culture. Or if they do admit that there's a European culture, that it's a negative thing. Why is that? And we'll get on to Australia in a sec, but...
Well, Australia is connected to that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm very connected to that. And I've seen that already in my time here. I'm a great advocate of self-criticism as an individual, and for societies, I think self-critical societies are a very good thing, much better than the opposite. But self-criticism has to be fair to yourself as well. It can't be masochistic. It really shouldn't be masochistic. It really shouldn't be. Apart from anything else, because you end up producing people who think that because you're in a self-critical society, the worst things that are said about your society are true, and therefore the other societies who are not self-critical, who you don't hear things from, you can kind of give a pass to. I mean, I worry about this all the time about coverage of Russia, for instance. I think there's a branch of conservatism in particular which is far too uncritical of Russia. And I think this is one reason for that. You know, we live in these messy, diverse and pluralistic and democratic societies, and you can hear all sorts of stuff about us. And then there are these sort of countries which don't have to have, those messy things like elections and so on. And it's sort of easy for people to fall, well, it's too easy for some people to fall into a form of almost admiration, quasi-admiration. And I think it's the same thing with China. And I just think we should avoid the worst tendencies of this. And I suppose it comes down to that central thing. It came up in the discussion in Sydney on Sunday, but, I'm all for people feeling that where there are remaining inequalities because of historical events. I'm all for people trying to work out how to deal with that. I'm not for self-annihilation as the answer. I'm not for instance, I don't think an obvious solution to ongoing racial issues in the US is, for instance, for some kind of tithe to be taken from everyone who's white or of European descent in America and distributed among the black population, as Ta-Nehisi Coates and others have recently argued. I think there's a new type of hell you're going to create if you go down that route. But I'm all for answers. But this sort of thing that's going on, and you hear it here, I think, as well, it's going to tell some people, it has been telling some people, that they are uniquely guilty. And my view is that no people on earth have ever been entirely guilty, and no people on earth have ever been entirely innocent. And in any case, we get back to this central conundrum, which I address a bit in one chapter in the book, in The Tyranny of Guilt, which is, how do you solve it? Like, what are your suggestions for solving this, and how do you expiate it? So, there's something which I didn't actually end up putting in the book, but which Nietzsche is very good on, which is having what happens in societies which effectively have the structure of Christianity but lack the belief. And one of the things that you can get into in that, and I think this is the case in Australia, I think it is the case in my own country and across much of Europe, is you get into the problem of guilt with no potential possibility for redemption ever. Yeah. No means of redemption. Germany is the obvious example. This is living memory. But what is your attitude to be to young Germans who themselves have never done anything, and whose parents may not have done anything, and whose grandparents may? What is your answer in a country of 80 million people, most of whom are descended from the generation of that war? It's not clear to me, but I know that there is a lot of damage that you could do if you kept telling Germans that whereas generally we don't believe people are responsible for the sins of their fathers, they should be. Because it suggests, among other things, for instance, that there's something in the DNA, something of the blood, something in the blood in Germany that every now and then turns them genocidal. And that's a kind of Nazi idea, that there are historical traits within people that erupt like that. I don't like this deterministic view. You could almost say it's Calvinistic.